All right, everybody. It has been a while. Started. Thank you, everybody who showed up tonight. Hey, TBD gamer, good to see you, man. Um, and yeah, I had a bit of a weird weekend. Um, so I learned that by like clenching your teeth and grinding them, you can actually kill the nerves in your teeth, which is crazy to think about. But worse is the pain that it causes. It is crazy how much pain that causes. I woke up Sunday morning in so much pain. I was really just struggling to even think straight. And I knew, like, in my mind, I'm like, I need to get my stream done. I need to get my stream done, and then I'll get this taken care of. Yeah, teeth can be terrible, right? And like the issue was is that it hurt way down into my jaw. Like I could touch my jaw here and it would just send like sharp pain all through the side of my face. Um, I didn't know at that point in time that I killed it. I actually didn't know it was possible until the morning. So I decided, you know what, I need to go to the ER. What everything's saying, right? If you've got a fever and you've got pain in your jaw, there's probably some kind of infection. If not taken care of, it can be lethal. So it's like, oh, I better take this seriously. So I went to the ER. They did some simple tests, but they're not dentists. It's like, oh yeah, you've got infected gums. Um, and so she gave me an antibiotic and sent me home with an anti-inflammatory. Also, she gave me an anti-inflammatory shot. And I felt good for about 8 hours until the anti-inflammatory shot wore off. But over time, I just got higher and higher fever. So by the end of the day, Sunday, I was at, well, it was right around 2 or 3 p.m. in the afternoon. I was at 103-degree feverish, hovering between like 102.5 and 103. Um, and that's Fahrenheit, right? Obviously not Celsius. I don't even know. That's like, it's hot. And for comparison on the Fahrenheit scale, for those of you who don't, do Fahrenheit, 98.6. What they say the average human temperature is, right? It's a range around 98.6, but I typically run cooler than that. So I was really hot. Um, and so I was working on breaking that fever. That fever broke uh, like 1 a.m. that night. I was able to get some sleep, but was woken up by pain. Um, and then yesterday I went and saw the dentist. He did some x-rays and determined that, yeah, um, I'd killed one of the nerves in my teeth, that my gums were healthy. And so, yeah, there was a procedure to relieve pressure. There will be some more procedures that need to happen. Um, so right now, I'm still on a little bit of painkillers just because still a bit of pain, but it's not as bad as it was, thanks to my dentist. Um, and then Thursday, I'll be solving it for good. Um, Thursday, I'm hoping I recover from the procedure fast enough Thursday that I'll be able to stream. If not, we'll move the stream to Friday. And the reason that I'm not skipping streams this week is that Monday is Mother's Day, so I won't be streaming on Mother's Day. I'll be spending time with my wife and daughters. And then we'll be back the following week. But yeah, it's been a thing, and I've got a bit of a fever right now. So it's just a little bit strange, and it is what it is, and we'll get through it. But yeah, healthy outlets for your stress. Don't clench your teeth and power through something. It's not a healthy way to handle it. Um, so yeah, um, yeah. Well, thank you, TBD Gamer. It's just an interesting lesson. I had no idea. Um, and yeah, but I am happy that I have the ability to get it figured out, right? And so I do feel extremely lucky in that regard, right? Because I imagine there are people out there that um, it would be difficult for them to get help, um, which leads to even more stress. So yeah, as you can see, we're just finishing up the upgrades, and then we're going to make sure everything runs, and then we will take a look at Contentful. I wound up picking Contentful mainly because that's what we use at work. Um, I've actually never used a CMS before. I used um, no, I've never really even used a CMS before. So we're going to learn how it works together. We're going to get it set up. We'll get some content into it, and we'll get it to our blog. Um, Once we've got that, I'll figure it out. The next way forward from there um, is I want to look at testing in analog, because analog uses vtest, as you can see right here, um, which I think is going to be interesting to just see what's different between vtest and jest. And I also want to take a look at how we would go about testing, the SWC components from analog. Um, so I'm really curious about just how all of that works. Um, However, before we do the testing, I think we might take a quick detour. Um, Angular 18 releases soon, and I would like to jump in um, and take a look at Angular 18. And I have an interesting idea um, that was proposed by a coworker, um, and she's a bit of a genius. I love working with her, and she was like, you know what? What if we took the Angular router and changed the routing strategy on it so that it's completely no op? Um, Meaning that everything the Angular router does, it does nothing. And I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. And so I was talking to some people, and that's a strategy that's been taken by a couple of different projects out there. Um, and so I wanted to take a look at Angular 18, look at some of the new stuff in Angular 18, but at the same time, experiment with like a weird way to do um, like Angular router stuff. And think it, in talking about it with my coworker and then people online, it's really opened up my mind to some interesting ideas. Nixia, WordPress sites. I have never done WordPress. Um, Actually, that's not true. That is not true. Um, and I don't even know how long ago it was. So way back in the day, the very first web server I ever set up on my own was a LAMP server. Um, and for anyone who hasn't done LAMP, and this would be before maybe some of your time even developing. LAMP stood for Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. So one of the very first languages I ever used on the web was PHP. Sometimes LAMP also stood for Perl, because one of the first languages for doing like dynamic websites and dynamically interpreting websites was Perl. And you would use the CGI bin directory on your Apache install, and that would parse your templates. And Perl is incredibly good at making ugly regexes, right? TBD gamer, horrible flashbacks, exactly, right? Perl, Perl is an incredible utility language, um, and I have done some incredible things with Perl. But if you ever have to maintain a project written in Perl that you didn't put together yourself, you should run. If you have to maintain a project that you put together yourself in Perl, you should think twice and then run. Um, Perl's really, I'm joking. Any language can be put together well, right? Yeah. Perl is infamous for being difficult. The other one that would use the CGI bin, like early web days, you would use C preprocessors, and I think to this day some of PHP is still CGI bin C preprocessors. I don't remember if it is anymore, but a lot of C was written in, or a lot of PHP was written in C doing preprocessor stuff in the CGI bin directory. My boss was very proud of creating our company site in Perl in 2000. I replaced it with PHP a couple of years later. Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the way the web was, right? Back then, is that there was, well, we've never recovered from that habit, right? Where, ooh, shiny, let's rewrite. And the problem is, um, long lasting code takes a lot of rigor. And you have to be very, very careful. Either that, or you need to get somebody extremely loyal who's willing to maintain it in their manner for the entire time. Um, so I worked on a code base that had been around since the 1970s, and for the majority of that time, it was worked on by one man. Who, I mean, he was involved in a lot of crazy stuff early on. Um, it was fun to talk to him. But he was involved in a lot of the early internet stuff. He was involved in getting supercomputers to universities in Utah. He was involved. He did a lot of like really old school crazy stuff, and he set up the original programming for what they were doing at the auto auction I was working at. It was written in a language called JBase, um, and JBase was a language. It's it's a flavor of hick basic. No, it wasn't a Borland. It wasn't. It was never a Borland project. You're thinking DBase. JBase is pick basic, um, and all the menus were written in a flavor of um, like assembly that they called proc. Um, And so to get things onto the screen, you had to move variables, and then you would move the string into a variable, and then would you call, display string, and then it would grab the variables from the. It was crazy. And then it was a crazy language. I hated proc so much that one of the very first things I did, because all of our screens were 80 by 80, and then they used proc, and then they would launch into JBase programs behind the scenes. They would use their own menuing and stuff, but proc launched a whole bunch of stuff. Um, and I hated proc so much, and I hated working on the screen so much because JBase is an attribute marked base language. It's a multivariate language. Um, And so fields are denoted by attribute marks, and then subfields are denoted by sub attributes. And there was one more that I can't remember what it was. Um, so it was crazy. I turned 44 yesterday. I've been reminded today by several people on Twitch I'm ancient. We've seen quite the evolution of technology, and that's true. Let's see, how old am I? 2024, 47. So I'm just a little bit older than you, and I've been around for quite a while. And by the way, happy birthday, TBD Gamer. And yeah, so you've seen much of what I've seen too, right? Like my first computer that I learned to program on was a TRS-80 Color Computer 2. And so my first programming language was BASIC. And then, as I got into the x86 computers at school, I started learning like GW BASIC. The first non non basic language I learned was C. That I had a friend who worked for Micron gave me one of his old compilers, and um, and he gave me like instruction on how to use it. And I was so naive that like, well, how do I declare a variable? He's like, I don't know, you just declare it. Right? Because in BASIC, there's no such thing as like an integer or a float or a string or anything like that, right? It's not a typed language. And so it took me a long time to even get over that. And just some of the dumb questions I asked. So, if people feel like they're dumb, I can tell them, at one point in my career, I asked, or not even a career, right? But at one point in my programming journey, I asked somebody who is definitely a senior programmer, how do I declare a variable? So if you haven't done that, you're better off than I am. So, but yeah, nostalgia, man. I've seen a lot change, and things are a lot better now, but there are also things that are a lot more difficult now, and I think that's just the nature of humans, right? Um, we're really, really good at using up all the budget that we have, right? Whether it's living within our means, right? As your means increase, the way people live tends to expand to fill that means, right? Um, and we're the same way with computers, right? As computers have gotten faster, we've tended to expand to fill that capacity that computers are giving us. As memory's grown, we've tended to grow to expand it, right? Um, and one of the side effects of that is that things get more and more complex as they get more and more space. So in a way, things were easier back in the day, but there were also things that were more difficult. So yeah, yeah, I could talk about all sorts of crazy languages I've worked in. There are crazy programming languages out there that are being used to do very important things. Anyway, we've got this all up and going. Let's npm nx, and we'll just do a run many, and we'll try linting our stuff and just make sure that I didn't break our linter. All of this upgraded our dependency. We've got some broken linting stuff. Oh, we're still linting HTML files. Where did I tell it to file? The other thing I wanted to do is remove TRPC from our project. TRPC is really interesting. It's another thing that I was talking with my coworker. It was really cool. gRPC is a way to get TypeScript types from the server to the client and vice versa. Um, so it's strongly typed TypeScript communication protocol, which is really cool. But it's not something we're going to be using in this project, and it's just causing issues upgrading. So we'll figure that out. First thing I want to do, actually, before we do that, let's finish what we're doing. No, I want to fix the index.html. So let's see. Let's look at our eslint.rc. Inside of here, did I tell it to lint files? Lint HTML. Maybe it's in our next. I put something in here. HTML. Why are we linting? We've got the ESLint RC. Got the ESLint config. Isn't one. ESLint. Told to ignore node module. Why? So it's for the Angular blog. Trying to lint the HTML file there. The other place where it could be is in the project.json. Inside of here, do we have HTML? Ooh, go. Probably something that I did. That should fix our issue. Because I don't think that that's standard, having that HTML in there. And in fact, I think I'm fairly certain I remember adding that on a stream. Invalid lint configuration, nothing to lint. Nothing to. Take a look at. By me. I want to take a look at the Git history on this. Specifically, this one here. In. Hmm. Page.json here on the fort. That is not project.json. Hmm. Well, this is the log of project.json. Here it is right here. Mace. These are all branches. Project.json. There's history up to here, but I don't want the history up to here. I want the full history. Because this is when I added that project.json. That one changed there. Fixed linting. Here we go. What do I do to fix? Oh, was it created with HTML in it? It was. I thought I tried to change it for analog and then I undid that change. Why is it complaining? And maybe we'll come back to it. I think it's been complaining about this since the beginning. And I don't want to get too distracted today because I want to get to what we're doing. And I do have a tendency to get distracted. This index.html, the very first, and that's the weird thing here, is I know, yeah, it's complaining about this token here. And I'm not sure why. I'll figure it out later. Anyway, we know the linting isn't broken. It's been this way since the beginning. NX, we'll just try serve, right? Here, we'll just serve our Angular blog. I think another thing that I would like to do is when Angular 18 comes out, I think I would like to make sure that we upgrade to upgrade Angular Sudoku to use Angular 18. I think I want to keep that project up to date. I may even do the same for Angular dynos in this one, just so that we have good version. I don't know. I'll have to think through that one. 3 upgrade streams in a row may not be that much fun. Yeah, it's looking. It looks like it's all working as expected. Getting the images as we would expect when we click into them. Obviously, these things aren't matching because I don't have them set up to match. We'll be doing that here shortly. We're going to be looking at how to add content that will be used on the different views. Yeah, everything seems to be looking good. So we haven't broken anything, which is good. Let's go ahead and stop serving for now, because I think a lot of today will be spent in Contentful. I'm getting that set up. And I'm just going to start these changes. We're good there. So let me bring up Contentful. I don't know if I need to sign into it. So earlier today, I created a Contentful account. So when I sign into it, I'm not sure what information it's going to display. There might be some information that I just don't want out there. Here we go. So when I first started Contentful, it added a whole bunch of just weird stuff. And I deleted all of that because I didn't want it. So to start, we need to design our content model. And this is me. So I spent a bunch of time reading earlier today on the Beginner's Guide to Contentful, Contentful 101. I've got this up on my other screen just in case I need it. But anyway, we're going to figure out how to do Contentful. The first thing we need to do to use Contentful is we need to design the actual content that we're going to serve. And so we'll need to model our blog. So we'll need to go in and design our content model. And supposed to be designing a space. So maybe I've got a space already in place. Webhooks, entries. And this is a free account. So one thing, I'm not associated with Contentful in any way. The only reason I'm using it is because that's what I use at work. Quite honest, nothing more than that. But it says I'm supposed to create a space, but I don't. Like doc. New, create a space. So there was a blank space that I deleted. Well, insights. I don't know. Maybe the spaces are not cal preview. These are all settings. I don't know. I'm not going to get too hung up on it. we'll go ahead and design our content model. And here, the type of content that we're creating are obviously blog posts. These are our blog posts. The API identifier is going to be blog post. And we're just going to say that this is the content for our awesome analog JS blog, right? And I am going to, can I just save? Turn you off for a little bit. I don't know. All right, so we'll create that. And so now that we've got the blog posts, now we need we need fields to be able to refer to our content post. So we can add fields. These fields here, these are the different fields that we could add. And the references I'm still a little bit fuzzy on, but I think these are like foreign keys, to where like my blog posts, I could create an authors table down the road and have my blog posts refer to authors so the authors could be included. And maybe we'll do something like that too. But for the blog, if we go look at our model, right? Service, got it. Maybe. Going to return article model. And our article model has an ID, title, author, content, the date, and then the image URL. And so we're going to try and replicate this. I'm going to leave out images for a bit, but the creation date, the content, the title, and the author will go ahead and add. I'm not sure what the ID will be, and the image URL, I'm not sure about that one either. We'll figure that one out once we get to that point. But let's create our title, our content, and our date. Then we'll add an authors table, and then use that as a reference. So text is just going to be, titles, names, paragraphs, names, stuff like that. So this is our title field. These settings can't be changed. Short text, exact search. 256 characters is the max for a short text. I'm going to go long search. Would we ever go over 256 characters in a time? Maybe. Like, yeah, title. Use this for descriptions, text. We'll try this one. It's saying to use it for titles. If there's more than one value to store, like several names, this isn't a list, so we will add this. Title, field settings. It does enable localization. We aren't doing localization, but we could. Required field, it is required. Unique field. feel like we want to make this unique. Um, and the reason, and this is where things can get tough when designing data, right? Um, the reason I feel like we want to make this unique is it could get confusing if two people um, say, for example, you had, or even just me, right? And I'm looking outside at the weather. If I lose internet due to the weather, just know that we're having crazy weather where I'm watching the rain. It's blowing pretty hard, a lot of lightning, and the rain's just almost blowing directly sideways. It's kind of crazy how it looks outside. So if I suddenly disappear, that's probably why. Unfortunately, the internet in my area is particularly bad when it comes to rain and frustrates me. If that happens, I apologize. Our weather is pretty nice right now. We're probably in for some rough stuff. Man, we've had some beautiful weather on the past few days, which is why it sucked that I've been down with a fever. Um, I'm hoping the weather gets better soon. But you know what? Honestly, I don't care. As long as the weather's good at the end of the month, go on vacation. Limiting character count, I'm not going to do that. It doesn't have to match. No, we're not going to prohibit that. And we're not going to specify that they have to be that. Um, and this stuff I don't care about because we aren't going to be doing this. Help text, don't care. We're going to confirm this. So now we've got our title. The next thing we want to do is images, videos, PDFs, and other files. What I'm curious about is let's why do I do that? Like let's go, let's see, contentful, and let's see field type for markdown. So the text field type uses markdown, but should I be using rich text? The long option appears as larger text box. So to do markdown, we don't do rich text. Because what I do want to do is store markdown in my I want to store markdown in the as content and then allow analog to render that markdown. We just had landscapers in today. Oh, they cleaned my property up opening end of the month. Oh, that's nice. When we moved into this house, we debated what we wanted to do with our backyard. This is the largest yard I've ever had. I think my house sits on like a third of an acre. Not that big, but it is. I mean, if you live in a city, it's a really large lot. I mean, there are other lots where I am that are half acre lots. And those are big lots. Mine's big enough that you can mow it with a push mower in like 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how fast you walk. So you don't have to do like a riding mower. And technically, for a big lot, you don't have to. It depends on how much time you want to spend, walking and unloading bags of grass clippings. But yeah, we debated a pool, but my daughters were so young. We didn't know how that would go, so we put in a playground, and now we're looking at potentially selling the playground, pulling out the trampoline that we put in the ground and potentially putting in a pool, but I don't know. Utah freezes, although we haven't had that bad of a freeze in a long time. Um, so I imagine the pool would probably do better than it typically would in Utah. But yeah, that's awesome. We're working on our sprinklers and stuff right now, which I enjoy doing that. Like in the heat of the day, I like going out and working on the sprinklers and just getting soaked, just enjoying the cool water and the warm sunshine. So to do that, which text field was similar? Italicized, interactive components and carousel. I don't want a rich text. We'll just do a text and we'll do a large text. So that sounds awesome. Yeah, summertime is just a great time in just a great time. I think worldwide. I'm gonna say in the U.S., but um, it's just a great time worldwide. Yeah, I really enjoy. I enjoy barbecues. I enjoy when we built our house. We put a fire pit in the backyard, and due to the way the laws have changed in the city, because we have a fire pit, we were added to the grandfather clause, and we're allowed to have a fire pit, and we're allowed to have fires. But anybody else who builds or does something from now on has to have like a gas, um, a gas whatever. We do have like I don't even know what you want to call it, like a fire table. It is natural gas. Well, it runs on propane. And we do tend to use that a bit more because if you don't build a fire right, the smoke is just crazy. I'm not going to do. There's our content. And then the last thing we want is just a date field. And this is going to be our created. We want created. I don't know that we want created. We want published date. And configure this. We won't make it required. We will add this field when they actually publish the article. And don't actually want, only want a date. What we care about. We don't care about time zones or anything like that. We just care about the date it was published. And so that we need here, I think, other thing. Oh, these changes. Yes, thank you for catching that. So then the other thing we want to do, go into our content model. It's about the visual model. Switch to edit mode. Our blog post. We can create our authors here. working in my production environment. Yes, I am. Oh, yes, I am. Why not? So our authors, unknown server error. What did I do? Let's go back to our content model. Got authors here. Go back to our visual modeler. This is weird. Very weird. Let's go into authors. We'll add some fields. This is our first name. Short text, yes. This one will be a required field. Unique first name, that would be hilarious. And I think that's all that we care about. We're going to add a last name. That, and this one is a required field. And we could add some other stuff later. But for right now, I think this is enough to be able to get us to be able to reference each other. And I'm just checking that everything's going okay on the side. So now we've got the authors going. Let's save these changes. We've got the authors and the blog posts. And I'm really curious, can I? So I did something, right? Because I can't add the authors to my visual anymore. What if I refresh? There we go. There are new content types here. Is there a way for me to create a link between it? No, go here. Inside of here, we'll add a reference type. And this reference type will be the author. Yeah, this looks like a foreign key, right? One-to-one or many-to-many. Add and configure. We do want an author. No, we can't create. Yes. This not a this is a reference, but to what? Can I not? Look at that. Oh, so how would I do that without this? Right? Um, Without the visual modeler, how would I have done that? Because now we've got this one-to-one reference on authors. Um, but how would I do that without the visual modeler? And this, this we've got it figured out, but I'm curious where that's displayed here. It's like this author field is definitely set up as a reference. Um, oh, that's where this is done. That didn't make, okay. That didn't make a lot of sense to me at the time. It does now. It seems obvious now that, hey, you can only be this type. So it's going to refer to authors. Um, but um, it didn't make sense at the time. I thought it would tell me, hey, pick what it refers to. Um, no. Okay. Makes sense now. That's where we would see that. And so now we've got this. So now that we've got our model set up, we can go in and add some entries, right? So we need to add an author. And so this will be Jason, me, right? We'll go ahead and publish this. And that is now published, right? And that's cool that, we could do translations and stuff here, getting information on it. There's the entry ID for that. That's cool. So now we've got Jason as an author, and that's been published. So it's out there in live. Um, and then the other content type that we want to take a look at is blog posts. And this is where we'll do. Let's do a Gemini article on Angular, and let's do a Chat GPT 4 article on Angular, right? Um, and we'll get those in. So we'll go ahead and add a new entry, blog post. So we're going to need Chat GPT to bring these up. The author will be me, because of course, when you've got an author, or when you have AI write something for you, you should definitely claim it for yourself, right? So we're going to go to chat.openai.com. Oh, I need to sign in. So go ahead and sign in. There we go. Ooh, ChatGPT. GPT now has memory across chats. That means they just added streaming to your chat GPT. Woo! I've been doing that on my local LLMs for a little bit. Interesting. Bunch of stuff. And let's just get chat GPT. And this is small. Is this not small to you guys? Like, why would it be small? There we go. So chat GPT, let's do this. Let's go ahead and with chat GPT, let's say, hey, say you are a helpful AI who writes articles about analog JS and Angular. Boom. Sure, I'd be happy to help with that. Analog JS is building analog style web interfaces, while Angular is a popular. Great. Let's go ahead and write an article about how to use single file components with analog JS. Wow, we got slow. And it's off doing its thing. Oh, wow, we're getting everything here. Look at this. We're getting the installation. It's actually doing a good job with the single file component template style. This is pretty impressive. Processing components. And now we're going into Webpack stuff. Let's give GPT some help. Let's drop the installation and discussion about Webpack. Instead, let's focus on how to use SFCs with Angular components. Let's see if ChatGPT can do that. Leveraging single file components. I like the title so far. I love that it's calling Angular a robust framework by Google. Understanding Angular. Creating, oh no. We get bogged down on the Angular components. Oh, you tried. You really tried, ChatGPT. And I really like that you're giving me example code. This is really cool. But let's say write the article about creating a single file component and then importing that into a traditional standalone Angular component. And let's see if, there we go. There we go. We're off to a good start. Angular does not natively support S. Oh no. Let's see what it does. Let's see what it does. We'll give it some hope. We'll give it some time. Maybe it can. And maybe I'm trying to make it write something that's a little bit too. Because this is not an SFC, right? This is a standalone component. Did they get the standalone right? They didn't even get the standalone right. They didn't add standalone, right? So let's try something new. Instead, let's focus on writing your first analog FC in an Angular, in an SFC, and focus on writing your first analog SFC in a tutorial style. Don't discuss installation or Webpack. Let's just get writing your first analog single file component, a tutorial. That actually sounds like a title I would write. Oh no. What did I do up above that got such good results? So write an article about how to use single file components with analog.js. And it's still calling it mycomponent.ajs. That's not cool, but okay, whatever. So you know what? This is not about single file components or Angular in analog. If it can get the, oh no, look at that. No, 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 no. You know what? We're done. We'll take the first one. Doesn't matter. It's just content, right? So how to use single file components with analog.js. Copy this. We're going to go here and boom. There we go. And now on to our content. Go back here. Going to copy all of, because I really like that it, oh, look at that. I can just copy that. Boom. I really like that it got the style mostly right. And we can, you know, because we're somewhat responsible, we can help, right? Take that out. Here, if we click preview, we can see, hey, oh, we've got some nice stuff going on here. Go back to our editor. Structuring apps, well, frameworks like Vue have also Popular's analyze has used it. Up over on the side. Was worried that I may have lost the. Did I lose my? Things seem to be okay. Make sure. Just a little bit nervous that things aren't working the way I would expect them to. That looks good. Yeah, we seem to be doing okay. All right. I always just get a little bit nervous when these things pop up out of the corner of my eye and I don't know what it was. But okay. So we've got, we're setting up analog JS. Sure, we're okay with that. Creating an index.html and an entry JavaScript file. This is not good, but you know what? We're not. This sentence is hilarious. It does not natively support it. Component structure. This we're going to be just we're going to edit for slight accuracy changes, but I love that it got the template right and it got the script. This is interesting. And I really wonder if this would work. This is really interesting. But the thing is, in analog, this isn't even really necessary. Here we could just go const title that. Here we could just go const message that. And then we don't need all of that. And then H1 and P. So we're wrapping it in a div, and yeah, that's fine. And again, I'm not going to get too bogged down in this. So yeah, we're good. I'm the author, and you know what? We're going to publish that. We're going to pretend that we published this way back in April. April Fool's Day. Sounds like a good publish this article. And so there we go. Now we've got the Chat GPT version. You know what? Let's even we won't mark. I was going to say we'll even mark it as a Chat GPT version, but we won't. Let's go ahead and go to Gemini.google.com. There we go. And here, again, we're gonna give it basically the same prompts that we gave ChatGPT and see what we come up with. So we're gonna start with this prompt, right? Because we don't want to give either one any advantage over the other. So there we go. You're a helpful AI who writes articles about analog JS and Angular. Oh, wow. We're already off to the races. Thank you, Gemini. But let's make sure that we give it the same prompts, right? And this is the prompt that we used that we published. So this is the prompt that Gemini will write about that we will publish. We'll see what Gemini comes up with. You know what? Let's make this a little bit bigger. Also, and so streamlining Angular development, single file components with analog JS, keeping component logic temp. Wow. You know what? Brandon would love this first paragraph. I may have to share that one with him because that is quite the endorsement by Gemini of analog. Wow. Right? Angular excels at building dynamic single page applications, keeping component logic, templates, and styles separate, can sometimes lead to context switching and maintenance overhead. Analog.js is a meta framework for Angular, true, introduces single file components, SFCs, to streamline your development process. Why single file components? SFCs offer several advantages. Improved organization, keeping all component code in a single file fosters better organization and readability. I think this might start a flame war, but you know what? We're going to publish it anyway. Enhanced maintainability. Changes are easier to track and manage when everything resides in one place. Interesting that they're both following kind of the same pattern, install. And you know what? Gemini got it right. Kind of. But this is better. Oh, interesting. Gemini got this right too. Yeah, exactly. Separation of concerns. Like the stuff that it's talking about is definitely going to trigger some and make others happy. Like the whole single file component thing has been kind of a microcosm of not even a micro. It's interesting to see everyone's opinions come out around this. I've enjoyed it. I've definitely made some mistakes. Separate files does not necessarily mean separation of concerns, but it often helps people get in that mindset. Const versus let wars. Nixia, what it really points out is that as developers, we're really good at letting our egos get in the way. And we want to make sure that we bash others over the head with our right, with our understanding and how we're the right ones. Developers have been great at doing blame wars forever. This is right though. Gemini must have more up-to-date documentation around Angular and analog, which makes sense because Angular is a Google product, right? And analog is part of that ecosystem. So the fact that it got this right is really impressive. I don't know if it's totally right, but I do know in the beginning you had to turn on the experimental. And in fact, if you want to do single file components in an Angular project right now, you could actually install single file library and enable this in your Angular, and you could do it there to really make some people frustrated. You have seen effect TS. I don't think it'll take off, but it's very dude, you're nerd sniping me right now. I love effect TS. Yes, I have seen it. And let's see, where is their documentation? I really love what they've done. Like Effect TS. If you guys haven't seen this before, um, and I was, uh, I was, what I need to probably start doing is just use a separate profile on Chrome for. One of the reasons why I started using Arc is I was starting to see like streamers and YouTubers who were accidentally leaking personal information, like bank account numbers or things like that, from URLs that they typed or things like right, and not necessarily bank account numbers, but you know, important information was being leaked in the URL as they were typing. Um, Arc has been an interesting experiment. Um, what I think I'll do is I'm just going to create a streaming profile for Chrome and I'll use that for streaming. And that way I separate my personal stuff from the stuff that I'm showing on stream. Um, and, it's just a safety thing for me, really. Um, oh, looks like RS. You triggered the maintainer. Oh, no, dude. um, there is a lot of good stuff in here. And quite honestly, when I saw it, I thought a lot about RxJS too. Um, but um, like observability is a big one. I think inside of here, there's also yeah, it's got some state management stuff built in. Um, and right, they're using fibers instead of signals. Um, and they've got interesting stuff in here, deferred and pub subs and semaphores, and there's a lot of good stuff in here. And yeah, like so RxJS is, and I'm probably going to trigger some people by saying this, but RxJS is probably the most successful implementation of the observer pattern in JavaScript. Um, and it does it very, very well. And maybe it's not the most successful because HTML, like the browser itself, has built-in observer patterns, right? So the on-click handlers, those are observer patterns, right? You're observing events, and then um, you're you're registering observers that happen when that event happens, and then you're registering handlers for those, right? That's a lot of what RxJS does. RxJS adds on composability. It adds on mutation. It adds on a bunch of things like that, right? With the notion of pipes. But at its most basic, it is an observer pattern. And whenever I see subscription, that's an observer pattern, right? And so I think that's where that comes across. I Effect TS is really cool. Um, there's another one that I'm watching. Let me go see. You totally nerd snipe me. Well done, Mixia. Um, don't even have to have Chow here to get nerds. But since you've done it, no, it is Effect that I was looking. One thing that I remember about liking about Effect. Yeah. feel like I only handle errors in a very surface layer, whereas Effect TS promises a more mature approach. And that was what I really liked about it. So here, there are unexpected and expected errors that I really liked about it. And they've got error matching. I really like the notion of error matching. And in the past, you guys have seen me on the I've used pattern matching to handle different things, right? On stream. And so I love pattern matching. It's one of the things that I'm really jealous that .NET got and we didn't yet. I know pattern matching is in an RFC for for ECMAScript, and once that RFC reaches a certain state, then TypeScript will implement it. But I mean, pattern matching is really, really cool. But one thing, so, and maybe I'm thinking of another library too, but I actually don't like, I don't like null. Well, null is fine. I don't like undefined. Actually, I don't even really like null. Yeah, this isn't the library that I'm thinking of. I prefer using a concept from, and I want to bring this concept to a stream where we don't. So let me back up, right? Because I do have this problem where my brain is like 3 or 4 steps ahead of where I'm talking. And so I need to slow down and kind of describe what we're talking about, right? One of the biggest frustrations that we have in most languages, I'm going to say, not even just ES and TS, right? And it's especially egregious in languages like Java and .NET, and see, I'm not as familiar with some of the other languages, but if you've ever seen code, like you know, in any language, it could be written this way, right? But let's say const. No, it needs to be changeable, right? So let you know, my name, and here we'll say it's a string equal null, right? TypeScript doesn't like that with strict type checking. You turn off strict type checking and that's fine. You know, to do that, I have to say this is optional. And it wants me to change this to streamer undefined, right? So, and now we can say, oh no, you know, we want null here, right? Or undefined here. Who cares, right? Whatever it is. And then you get into these arguments about, well, null means it actually has a value. We just don't know what that value is. Undefined means it's never been defined, and blah blah blah, right? And we get into arguing. We get into arguing semantics and bashing each other over the head with, well, what this really means is right, and it really comes down to your understanding, not really what. And it just makes the code messy, right? And then somewhere down the line, you forget to check for undefined or null, and then you start getting, you know, you start getting null references, right? You know, the classic null reference exceptions, and this is particularly bad in languages like .NET and Java, like I said, right, where you know, those exceptions have become a meme, right? And that doesn't happen when you stop allowing undefined to leak into place, right? And I don't know enough about modern Java to really speak to this case, but I do know that like .NET has tried to mitigate this by introducing notation that says that this can't be null, right? But that's still an exception, and you still could get null at places in the code, and then if you try to pass null to that function, again, right, you're going to get your errors. I prefer something monads borrowed from, or monads borrowed from functional programming, where you would just say, let name, it would be optional string, right? And here we could just say, like optional, right? We could do like none for right now, right? And at that point, it hasn't been defined, and we know that it's not defined. And then somewhere down the road, we could add optional.sum, and then later, if we have an issue, we could say, hey, name equals optional error, and then name is required, or who knows what, right? And so later on in the code, when you want to use name, you can't just use name. You have to say, if name, right? You have to unwrap name, and if it's got an error, you have to unwrap the error. And it's very similar to things that they do in languages like Rust and what's the other one that people talk about a lot with this? Is it Ruby that they talk about? Rust is one of them. I can't remember the other, but basically you get an error and you get a value out of any return. And if you don't get an error, then you got a value. If you don't, if you get an error, then you don't have a value. And so it forces you to check the return. Every time it comes back, you have to check, did I get an error? Okay, no. Then I grab the value and we're good to go. And it leads to safer programming because the pattern forces developers to interact with the code differently, right? They have to check, do I have an error before I can grab the value? Because, because the type is written in such a way that if there is an error, then there can't be a value. But if there isn't an error, then there has to be a value, right? And you can do something very similar here, where you could create const. We could create our own type, right? Type. We'll call our type optional equals, and here we could just do error, and error is string or value type t. Right? And so now what we can do is we can just have this function, and we can just say, our function is, read optional t, and we get our optional. It's of type optional t here. And so this is our guard here that like here. Any type. Shouldn't have type. Does have a return type. That's interesting. Does it want an arrow return type here? Doesn't like this. No, I didn't mean option. What have I done? My function. Is it not like generic here? No. That's really interesting. I don't know what was going on here. Now it doesn't like this. Why does it think this function is empty? It must not be catching up fast enough. Yeah, it's definitely not catching up fast enough. There must be something going on here. Why it keeps doing that. But right, without this guard clause, if we comment this out, then it's saying, hey, property value does not exist on optional T because value doesn't exist on error string, right? And so by creating this discriminating union, right? This union discriminates. It can either be an object that has an error, or it can be an object that has a value. But by creating this optional discriminating union, now we're forcing people who interact with this type to have to determine either is there an error or is there a value, right? And once we do that, and once things catch up, maybe really strange that it's going so slow right now. I'm not sure what's going on. But by doing this, and this is the exact same function that I was having trouble even figuring out what was going on, why it wasn't working. And it's still not catching up. Maybe save it. Will it? But this is, I mean, this is a guard clause, right? Because we're saying, hey, if the property error exists in optional, then we're going to throw that, and we can see that it knows the error needs to be a string. Otherwise, we'll unwrap it and return the value. And this forces us to interact with our code differently. Um, this is, this is why like strict type checking and things are in place. And this is why, the famous quote from, the guy who invented null says that null is like his $1 billion mistake, right? Um, I don't know why it's not catching up. Restart. I wonder if my Angular language service is having problems or. But anyways, the value, right? So just this small change, changing to a discriminated union like this. And there's more to like optional monads than this, right? Um, and if you go start reading about monads, you're going to start reading about like endofunctors and all of that fun stuff out there. And you're going to start learning about arity and all sorts of crazy words like that, right? Don't let it scare you. I think there's a lot of good stuff in functional programming that's worth knowing about. Um, and one of the things that I really like about some of the like truly hardcore functional stuff is the notion of null and undefined not being useful, and using something like optional or maybe is often what it's referred to too. Um, but yeah, you definitely sniped me good today, Nixia. So um, well done. But yeah, let's get rid of all of that. Let's get back to our content to make sure that I'm careful about time today. This week, my youngest, it's the showcase for all of the. She's on a competitive dance team. She's been dancing since she was 3 years old, and I fully admit that as her father, I am incredibly biased about her talents, but I find her to be really good. And so this week they're doing showcases. I need to end on time so that I can go support her in one of her showcases tonight. Tomorrow's the big one, but I'm just very excited for her. I love these end of the year things because they've gone through all their competitions, um, and they've worked on their dances. Actually, a little bit disappointed because Saturday I was in so much pain I wasn't able to go to competition. And so I'm very much looking forward to tonight and just going and watching her dance, like the final dance of the season, and just seeing how they've improved. And you know what? I'm giving you a thumbs up on this, Gemini, because you did a really good job on this. And in fact, I mean, we've got a module here, which whatever, but for the most part, a second, script there. Oh, you fell on your face. Dang it, Gemini. Here I am saying you did a good job. I'm going to have to take that back. I'm so very sorry. You failed. Code is not correct. Not factually correct. Oh, it even gave. That's a really weird reference. A very weird reference. Oh, that is such a weird reference. I don't even know why it came here. That's hilarious. So share and export. How do I just copy you? There we go. Copy. And let's go back to Contentful. And this one's published. Let's add a new one. So a new blog post. Go ahead and add a new blog post entry. We'll paste this in. And boom, there is the title. There's the article itself. We're going to say we published this today because we're going to, again, claim AI work as our own. And we're going to pick ourselves as the author, of course. And we're going to publish this. And so there we go. We've now published 2 articles. I think I'm going to end here for today. We will we'll pick this up Thursday night, and we're in a place where we can now grab this content and get it into our blog. If we go look, we go to the docs here. So I think it's under tutorials and guides. Visualization, webhooks, markdown. Oh. Not what I thought it would be. Editing widgets, localization patterns, spaces. See, I thought I was supposed to create a space, but I don't know what happened to it. There are things about frameworks. Bits and bytes. Webhooks. Validation, editing widgets. Localization patterns. Spaces and organizations. And this is where working with that going to be the developers using the tools you love. Next.js, React, Svelte, Angular. Yeah, I was reading through this today also. So you create your content here, you create your Angular project. And then for proceeding, you'll need to add your contentful space ID. Yeah, and environments.ts is probably a good place to do it. We're going to use the environment file, but I'm also going to use my local environment for that too. I'm going to use an env file. And that way I won't be checking in keys to the remote server. Right? I won't be checking in keys, not to remote server, to Git, right? I won't be checking in keys to Git because I don't want to be sharing my contentful keys with the world. I only get like 1 million requests per month, which when I say only 1 million, that's plenty for me. But if that key gets out, that could easily be eaten up in very, very short time. But then you create the service. And it looks like we need to add contentful. So interesting that they're saying to use NVM. That's an awesome version of Angular. Elite. So got this. There's that. Yeah, we'll create the token using the web app or the management API. I'll get that figured out. HTML renderer. Okay, so that's contentful. Oh, and they include their own renderer. Interesting. And the rich text types. Well, that's very interesting. You could use rich text types from Contentful. But what we need to do is just install their stuff. And then it becomes fairly simple, right? So you would create the type that you're going to use. We've already created ours. And then this just becomes a contentful entry. And then we just create a service. And then we do, we create the client with contentful. Grabbing the space ID and the tokens out of the environment file. And then really at that point, you just use the client to grab things. So it becomes pretty easy. We'll do a little bit of advanced querying. So at some point, we're going to create a bunch more articles. Probably allow ChatGPT and Gemini to battle back and forth again to see who can write the best Angular articles. And I fully expect Gemini to do better, but maybe GPT will surprise us. Yeah, that's what we'll pick up with on Thursday. Hopefully finishing this out. And then, like I said, Sunday, Mother's Day in the US, I will be spending time with my family. And then, so we'll be back on Monday. Hopefully, we'll be doing unit testing components in analog. I want to take a look at using how we would unit test components using something like, I don't know, we'll decide. But I'm most familiar with Cypress, but I think Playwright has the ability to do component tests now. Playwright. Component. Yeah, they've got experimental component tests. So very, very similar to what we can do with Cypress. You need the --CT. But we may stick with Cypress. I'll need to take a look at NX and see if NX can initialize this. If NX can do component testing with Playwright, maybe we'll take a look at that. But testing components that way. And then I think at that point, we'll move on to Angular 18 by hopefully next Thursday. But yeah, thank you everybody for being here. Thank you for the good comments and a little bit of good nerd sniping too. I appreciate it. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you next time.